Welcome to part 2 of the Ultimate Business Startup Checklist. If you missed part 1, make sure you go down to the link below. It'll be linked there. We're going to be building upon what we did in the earlier list. So you're going to want to make sure you do those steps first. What we're going to start with today is your online setup. And the first thing on the checklist for online setup is going to be registering your domain name. Now, from the earlier checklist, you'll remember that we did research and made sure that your business name was available to use with the county and the state. And you also should have already checked to make sure the domain is actually available for you to use as a domain. So what you're going to want to do is go to either GoDaddy or Namecheap or wherever it is that you want to buy your domain. If you don't have a place that you already know to go, I recommend that you go to GoDaddy or Namecheap. They usually have great deals, especially for people that are buying it for the first time. You'll get a really good deal on your domain, and register that domain. After you have your domain registered, you're going to need a place to host it. Now there, I do not recommend Namecheap or GoDaddy. They're great for buying domains, but not the greatest hosts. So, and you got a couple options on hosts that I'm going to run over here real quick. The first one and the most popular one and the least expensive one, of course, is shared hosting. What that means is you're sharing the hosting with other people out there also on the web that don't want to spend a whole lot of money. The only downside to that is it is a little bit slower. Support is not as good as what it would be on the higher levels, but there's a huge price difference. So I highly recommend going with shared hosting. And these are not sponsors. There's just people that I've worked, the companies that I've worked with. So I know they're fairly reliable. I use Bluehost, I've used HostMonster, and I've used HostGator, and I haven't had a whole lot of problems, and support has been fairly decent with all of those. And what you're going to do is take that domain that you bought at GoDaddy, and in there you're going to change your domain name settings. And we're going to have a video all about how to do this, but you're going to point that domain then at your hosting, and then where your hosting is where you're going to load your website, and we'll also go over all of that later. But getting your domain and your hosting purchased right now is what you need to focus on. The other type of hosting besides shared hosting is private hosting or having your own server. Now, we're talking about a price difference of $4, $5, $6 a month for shared hosting to $100, $200, $300 for having your own server. Now, of course, your website's going to move a lot faster. You don't have to worry about sharing space with anybody else. On the downside is you are responsible a lot more for your actual, if the website goes down, getting a hold of the people to fix it. Where if it's a shared host, everybody's website goes down, and somebody, if you don't notice it, somebody else is going to notice their website went down, and it seems to get fixed really fast because of that. You're sharing all that space. So there's upsides and downsides. If you're just getting started though, shared hosting is the way to go for sure. Now that you've got your web domain and you've got your hosting, the next obvious step is going to be to build your website. Now, there's lots of services out there that cost you money, like Wix, once again, not a sponsor, or Squarespace. Of course, again, not sponsors. I've never worked with either one of those. My understanding, though, is they do make it very easy for the beginner, that you just point and click and can kind of lay out your website. Once again, I've never used those, so I don't know for sure. I just know that's the intent behind them. I've always used WordPress myself. WordPress is very easy to pick up on quickly. We're going to have tutorials about using WordPress here on our channel, and it's fairly easy to do, and it doesn't cost you anything. There's tons of plugins out there that are free that you can add to it. There's tons of themes out there to give you a certain look that are free. And if you want to go that extra step and pay, it's usually a one-time payment, and you can get certain themes, certain plugins that give your site the unique look or feel that you're wanting, and it's not going to break the bank, and it's not going to be something. The downside of like Wix and Squarespace is you're always going to be paying for that. As long as you stay with that service, as long as you want the website up, you're always going to have that monthly bill. With WordPress, usually it's free up front, And then if you buy plugins or themes, it's usually a one-time purchase. And then you have that sitting on your hosting, and we'll go over all of that on how that works. But that's the basics that you're going to need. As far as also building your website, I mentioned the other ones like Wix and Squarespace. There's also the option of doing WordPress and going to some place like Fiverr and hiring somebody to build your website for you also. And you can usually get that done fairly cheaply if you're using a service like WordPress. And like I said, I generally kind of lean towards Fiverr myself. They got a good review system there, and you can see what other people have thought about the service, and there are a lot of reviews on there. So it's a good place to go to kind of get to be able to pick somebody to do your service without something like Craigslist, where you have no reviews and you're just gambling. So that's what I would do to get your website up and running fast. And keep in mind, your website's not there in stone. I mean, you can easily change your website. You can totally revamp your website. That's another thing cool about WordPress is if you want to do a change in theme keeps all the content but completely changes the look of your website. So you're never really locked into any one thing. The next step on the checklist is going to be, it has a little bit to do with your website and your social media sites that we'll talk about in a little bit. But that's going to be making sure when you go get images or videos or anything for your website that you have not done yourself, pictures you have not taken, videos you have not taken, you're going to want to go to a stock photo place. There's several of them out there, iStock, Video Blocks, getting on the more expensive side, Getty Images. But they will come after you if you use images that you don't pay for. You will find people do not want you using music, images, videos that they don't get compensated for. Another thing you want to be careful of that a lot of people don't think about is if you're doing your own video, don't play a copyright song in the background. Otherwise, your video is now going to get a copyright violation. You're putting yourself at risk. So make sure everything you use, whether it's music, videos, or images, that you have the rights to use them. Another thing on the checklist that's a huge tip is getting yourself set up on Google for your business. You might already have a Gmail account set up, but it's really a good idea to go and set up a separate account that is just going to be for your business. Like ours is mysecretceo@gmail.com. Now, we don't actually use that email address, but my email, kurt@mysecretceo.com, does come through that Gmail account. So you can set up all the accounts that you want to come through there, and you have access to all of those emails. It's just, you're going to find it's a very easy way to keep track of your stuff, which is going to lead us right into the next tip, or the next thing on the checklist, which is setting up your Google Calendar. When you set up your Google account, you're getting Gmail and you're getting Google Calendar. So by having everything centralized in Google, you've got your email there and you've got your calendar there. It's very easy to set up your day, set up your calendar, hook it up to your emails, and everything works flawlessly together. It's just, there's no reason not to do it. It's free. I highly suggest you use Gmail and their calendar. It's very efficient, very easy to use. And along with the whole idea of Google is you're also going to want to use Google Analytics. You can use the same account that you just set up, and you're going to want to go to Google Analytics. Just search it in Google, and I believe it's analytics.google.com, and set yourself an account there. After you set up the account, they're going to give you a little snippet of code. They're going to tell you to put that in your website. We will have a later video showing you how to do that. Very easy to do. What it gives you is who's visiting your site, where they're coming from, how long they're staying, all the things that a business owner needs to know about their website, Google gives you for free. You're putting their little code on there, and they give you the reports back, and what they give you is phenomenal. If you don't know anything about it, trust me, you want this from the get-go. And the last thing on the checklist that you want to do on your online setup is your social accounts. Now, when you did the research earlier, I briefly mentioned this, but we were not able to get My Secret CEO on Facebook. We are at My Secret CEO LLC. Somebody that doesn't even use that name already used that tag. There's nothing we can do about it. It's gone. It's used. So if you did your due diligence, you should have checked Facebook, Twitter, whatnot, anywhere you wanted to use your name, make sure that it was available or that you had one that you're willing to use, kind of like what we did. Having the LLC at the end is not a killer for us, so that's what we went with, and it works. You especially want to get set up the major ones like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you're doing business to business, as we talked about earlier, then you're going to definitely want LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your best one if you're doing business to business, because we're going to have a video all about that later. LinkedIn is the king when it comes to connecting with people in business. If you're selling to consumers, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are your go-tos. And that completes the online section of the Ultimate Business Startup Checklist. So your journey doesn't stop here. Be sure to continue on by clicking the video right over here.